What's up, everyone? Welcome to this episode 9 of Music Theory for Guitarists, the live streaming series on YouTube every Friday, to deliver to you music theory lessons for guitarists. Just checking, that was my voice twice. Just checking that we are in sync. Let's see. Yes, looks like. Great. So we don't have the issues that we experienced, unfortunately, a couple of weeks ago. If you're new here, this is a series of music theory explained for guitarists. So in a way that hopefully it makes sense on the fretboard of the guitar and will help you with your practice, will help you with your playing. So yeah, if you are new around, make sure to also double check the previous episodes of this series so that everything we'll see tonight in this new episode hopefully will make sense, okay? As always, if you join the live streaming, make sure to say hi and ask any questions you might have in the live chat box, and I will do my best to answer you live. If instead you're watching the replay, feel free to leave any questions while you watch the replay or after you watch the replay in the comment section as well. Just a quick reminder to say that we've got this new feature which is called time frame on YouTube, and it means that you will be able to skip to specific topics in case you want to watch the replay of one of the live streamings, maybe while you take some notes, maybe while you practice some of the things that we go through. If you want to go to specific topics, you'll be able to skip directly to that topic. Hey, Anthony, good to have you on board. Nice, and thanks for your comments so that I know that we are in sync. Luckily. So we are ready to go. In the episode 8 last week, basically, we did explore something about a couple of seventh chords, really one seventh chord, which is the -7, because another one, which is the dominant 7 chord, is something that we talked about in the episode 7. So tonight, the main topic will be going over the -7 flat 5 or half diminished chord, and we will also explain what that means and where it comes from, together with another one which is called major 7th. Okay, so these are the two chords that we'll be mainly talk about tonight, really. So half diminished, -7 flat 5, and major 7. So let's start with the -7 flat 5. The -7 flat 5 basically says everything in the name itself. It's this chord here, okay? And we're gonna go, as usual, over the formula, the intervals, the degrees. But more importantly, we'll start understanding that if you really know the name of this chord, the name of this chord is gonna tell you everything about the formula, everything about the degrees, everything about the notes that you are supposed to play in this chord. We'll also say briefly where you're going to find more likely this chord. So a -7 flat 5, let's say that we take as an example C as usual. Okay, we are in the key of C. This note here is our root note. This is the C. The -7 flat 5 is like a -7 chord, which we learned last week. But as the name says, you need to get the perfect fifth and bring it down by half step so that you get the flat 5 or diminished 5th degree, okay? That's why instead of playing this, I get this, okay? We'll also see the shapes in a minute, but first, let's get the theory down. So first thing first, let's go over the degrees. We're gonna have the root note, first note, C, for example, if we are in the key of C. Second note is gonna be the minor 3rd, E flat, if we are in the key of C. So C to E flat, that's the minor 3rd, distance, 3 half steps, or a minor 3rd of distance, interval distance. Next note, and this is the new one, it's going to be G flat. So all together, this is a diminished triad, okay? Root note, minor 3rd, diminished 5th. Root note, flat 3, flat 5, okay? That's the basic diminished triad that you all know if you followed the previous episodes of this Music Theory for Guitarists series, okay? So root, minor 3rd, diminished 5th. Once you are here, you need to add the 7th degree because we're talking about a 7th chord. And the 7th degree that you're going to add is again once more the minor 7. Now the minor 7 is that degree which you found already in the dominant 7 chords, in the minor 7 chords, okay, and now you also find it in the half diminished chord of minor 7 flat 5. So if we recap all of the notes, we're going to have C, root note, E flat, minor 3rd, G flat, diminished 5th. How do you notate these notes? So we normally just write the letter R. Apparently YouTube is telling me that we're going to have an issue with the connection. Maybe it should be sorted. Let's see if everything is all right. Just a double check, guys. We'll resume in a minute. I just want to avoid having like a bad signal or a bad quality. By the way, I never mentioned that, but if you're watching this from your phone, or even if you're watching it from your laptop, really, you've got the chance, if you go to the settings where you've got the 3 dots within the video, to select the quality and make sure that you guys select 1080p, okay, which is the full HD, because we want to follow this in full HD. The audio will be better and the video quality will be better as well. Okay, apparently everything should be sorted. I'll carry on. Let me know, guys, if we have issues with the sync or with the audio in the video. So let's recap again the 4 notes that we've got in a C minor 7 flat 5. We are going to go through the root note C, which we notate just with the R to say root note. Then we notate the E flat as the minor 3rd. The symbol for the minor 3rd is a flat, the little b, followed by the number 3. That means minor 3rd. It doesn't mean that the note necessarily is flat. In the key of C, it also is a flat note, but it could be any other natural note, really. It depends on which root note you start from. Then you're going to have the diminished 5th. Even the diminished 5th will be notated with a flat 5. So far we got root, minor 3rd or flat 3, diminished 5th or flat 5, then minor 7 that again you notate as flat 7, okay? While instead we'll see the major 7th degree later on. How do you find the minor 7th? As always, you start from the octave, so the root note 1 octave higher, and you go down by 1 whole step. This will bring you to B flat, which is the minor 7th degree, okay? So the minor 7 flat 5 chord has these intervals: 1.5 whole steps between the root and the minor 3rd, 1.5 between the minor 3rd and the diminished 5th, okay, which is going to be in this case G flat, we said, and 2 whole steps, so a major 3rd of distance between the diminished 5th and the minor 7, okay, 1.5, 1.5, 2 whole steps. But we don't really remember them this way. I mean, you can if you like it. But in my opinion, the best way is always to think about what triad do we have? We have a diminished triad. We already know that the diminished triad is made by root, minor 3rd, diminished 5th, so 1.5 and 1.5. You just add to this the minor 7th that we already found in the dominant 7 chord and in the minor 7 chord, so it's not going to be a new note. Okay, so root, minor 3rd, diminished 5th, minor 7, interval 1.5, 1.5, 2 whole steps. And note, if we get an example in C, C, E flat, G flat, B flat. Remember that between all of the notes, because we are going 1, 3, 5, 7, we want to skip one letter of the music alphabet. Okay, that said, let's see also why I was playing this shape. Again, we'll see all of the shapes in a minute, but why was I playing this shape? Because in this shape, I get all of the notes around my minor 7 position. So I keep the root, the minor 7th, and the minor 3rd from my previous chord, the minor 7 chord, and I'm only moving the note G, which is the perfect 5th, down to G flat, which is the diminished 5th, so that I get root, diminished 5th, minor 7, minor 3rd. Okay? If you guys are unsure why we don't find them when we play these chords, we don't find the order of these notes as 1, 3, 5, 7, and instead we mix them up, make sure to check out the episode 8, where I explain the concept of drop voicings and up voicings when you build up a shape for a 7th chord, really, which is quite similar to what we went through before when we explained the difference between a closed position of a triad and a spread voicing triad. Okay, so these are the two things that you don't want to miss out if you want to understand why we don't find 1, 3, 5, 7, but instead we find 1, flat 5, flat 7, flat 3. Okay, like the 3 goes 1 octave higher. All right. That said, this is all you need to remember about the way you build up the -7 flat 5. But let's go through the other name of this chord. This chord is also called half diminished. Why half diminished? Because only half of this chord is diminished. The other half, the other important part of this chord, is actually minor. So if you think about this chord, the triad is diminished, right? So you can say half of it, the triad, is diminished. The seventh is minor and it's not diminished. It does exist a diminished seventh. We will be finding this as the 5th species of the 7th chords, which is called diminished seventh. But here, which is called -7 flat 5, you actually have only the triad diminished and the 7th is minor. That's why we don't say this chord is a diminished chord or a fully diminished chord. We say it's a half diminished because only the triad is diminished while the 7th is not. The 7th is minor. Okay. So that's why the other name. If you say C half diminished, or if you say C -7 flat 5, that's exactly the same. Just so you know, you can write this chord as -7 with any of the symbols you use for a -7, like the minus symbol followed by the number 7, the MIN followed by the number 7, the small m followed by the number 7, plus the flat 5. So M7 flat 5 or MIN flat 5, -7 flat 5. These are all of the symbols accepted. But this chord also has a letter, which I believe comes from the Greek alphabet, which is going to be a circle with a line in between, like this. That symbol on its own means -7 flat 5. So if you want to say C half diminished, you could even use just the C and the circle with the cross in between, a single line, a single slash in between, which is the symbol for the half diminished. Okay, it's just a symbol in music we have. We'll find another one in a minute on the major seventh, very similar. So yeah, this is why it's called half diminished. So you can say -7 flat 5, you can say half diminished. The reason why it's also called -7 flat 5, which again, I appreciate it's not the best name, because in the -7, you actually have the perfect fifth. So when you say -7, I'm expecting, oh, there is a perfect fifth. Then you say -7 flat 5. So you know that you actually have to move the fifth, you know, down to the diminished fifth, you know. But yeah, anyway, it's probably not the best name, but this is what we got. We got from the music theory. Okay, so you need to think about a -7 and just drop by half step the 5th degree. Okay. Also, if you follow the order that we are following, the order of the species of the 7th chords, the first one that we learned was the dominant 7th, the second was the -7, and now the -7 flat 5. And there is a logic behind it. The logic is these 3 species actually change only one note from one to another. From the dominant 7 to the -7, you are moving the third down to minor third. From -7 to half diminished, you're moving the 5th down to diminished 5th. Okay, that's the logic behind it. But it doesn't matter. You could even learn them in another order. I just preferred in this music theory series to follow the official, you know, order of the species. That said, let's move on. Let's learn now the major 7, the theory of the major 7 chords. Okay, the major 7 chords will be basically made by a major triad, you know, like your classic C, E, G, or, you know, if you think about C major. So we are back now to a major triad, which is the same thing we found in the dominant 7 chords. But now, differently from the dominant 7 chords that wanted to give us tension, you know, you wanted this kind of thing that then at some point should release somewhere, you know, on a major 7 chord, by the way. What you do with a major 7 really is going through the major triad, root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, and now add the major 7th degree instead of the -7th degree. Now, this is the first time that, guys, we find the major 7th degree, so it might be worth spending a few seconds on explaining what a major 7th degree is before we talk about the major 7th chord, okay? So when we learned the intervals, for example, the intervals for triads, to make up a minor, major, diminished, augmented triad, even the sus chords, I briefly mentioned something called the interval table. Now, the interval table, I hope that you had a look online and you grab your own version. The interval table is that table, like the periodic table, I think it's called in chemistry, which is the one that contains all of the intervals that you have in music. So you can use all of those intervals, and with them, you will make up all of the chords, all of the scales, all of the modes, all of the arpeggios, everything. So it's one of those things that you really need to have under control. And obviously, you can't learn it all together. So my advice is, once you get one of those interval tables, make sure that you select the intervals that you already practiced or the intervals that you already studied in one of these chords, and you mark them as done, as something that you know. Because when you look at the interval table at first, it might be scary, like there's a lot of intervals going on. But if you follow this method, after a while, you see that you already know pretty much half of it, and then it's only going to be the matter of learning the other more advanced stuff to cover the second half, okay? Now, if you look at the interval table, you will find that the seventh interval can be major, minor, and diminished, and we use all of these three declinations of the seventh intervals in order to build up all of the 7 chords that we'll be going through. We'll be going through 7 species of 7 chords, so they are quite a lot. But so far, in the first 3 species that we learned, again, dominant 7th, minus 7, and minus 7 flat 5 or half diminished, you only found one type of 7th, which was in common between all of these 3 chords. And this type of 7th interval, 7th degree, is the minus 7th. Okay. Now, the distance between the root and the minus 7, if you count it, it's going to be 5 whole steps. So C is my root, therefore B flat is my minus 7th. If I count this interval, example, half step, and this is going to be 2.5, whole step, and this is going to be 3.5. G to A is going to be another whole step, and it's going to be 4.5. A to B flat, half step, and it's 5 whole steps. Okay, so 5 whole steps going from root to minus 7th. Now, this is not the easiest way to remember this. You must know this, okay? So if possible, guys, remember that a minus 7th interval is 5 tones, 5 whole steps. However, the easiest way is to think about an octave, C, and another C1 octave higher. Now, one octave is made, we did say that at the beginning of this course, but one octave is made by 6 whole steps. The reason for it is because within one octave, in the Western music system, you've got 12 notes, and the distance between these 12 notes is always half step. So if you put half steps times 12, you get 6 whole steps or 6 tones, okay? So the distance between one C and another C1 octave higher is 6 whole steps. Now, from the octave, we said that we found the minus 7th before, just going 1 whole step below. From C to B flat, you go 1 whole step down. Therefore, if C to C was 6 whole steps, C to B flat will be 5, okay? But again, instead of thinking about 5, I would just suggest think about the octave and go 1 whole step lower. Now, the minus 7th, it's also called this way because that is the 7th note that you find in a minor scale. In the previous episodes of this music theory, we went through the natural minor scale. Few shades, we saw all of the intervals, and if you go through that, for example, in the key of C, the notes that you have are C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. So B flat is the 7th note. That's why it's the minus 7th. But if we go instead through the major scale in C, the classic one that everybody knows, C, D, E, F, G, A, D, C, or Do, Re, Mi, Fa, Sol, La, Ti, Do, this kind of thing, the 7th note that you find is actually B now, okay? So you got a B instead of a B flat. So that is the major 7th. Now, we could think of it as, okay, what's the difference? What's the distance then from the C to the B, okay, in terms of interval? This interval, the major 7th interval, you can count it and it will be 5.5 whole steps, okay? Because if C to B flat was 5 whole steps, C to B is 5.5. But again, the easiest way is just to think about the octave and go half step down from any root, from any octave you got, and you will find the note which represents the major 7th, okay? So if I'm going to play a major 7th chord, the note that go here will be half set below the root, half set below the octave, okay? That is the little trick to figure out what is the major 7th degree. Now let's go through the major seventh chord to understand what are the notes within the major seventh chord. Okay. Now, when you play a major seventh chord, we already said you go through root, major third, and perfect fifth to get started with. So root, major third, and capital M3, perfect fifth, P5, and then B. B, which will be your major seven, can be written as capital M7. That's the symbol for major seven. Okay. Again, the distances between these notes are C to E, major third, so basically 2 whole steps. E to G is a minor third distance, minor third interval, so 1.5. Then G to B is another major third, so 2 whole steps. Okay, but again, we don't count really this perfect fifth to major seventh as 2 whole steps. Instead, we want to go octave, half step below, that's your major seventh, okay? So again, the degrees are root, major third, perfect fifth, major seventh. The intervals, so the distances, or the formula if you want, is going to be 2 whole steps, 1.5, 2 whole steps. But we always prefer to go to the root and go half step below. That's going to be your major seventh. While instead, 1 whole step below was your minor 7. 1.5 steps below will be your diminished seventh chord, and therefore your diminished seventh interval. Okay. But we'll see that in a couple of lessons, if not later on even. Okay, so yeah, these are the things we want to know about the major seventh chords. Okay, remember that the function of the major seventh chords most of the time is to release the tension. Remember, guys, the music is a continuous game of tension and release tension and resolve the tension somewhere else. And that somewhere else where you resolve the tension is usually a major seventh chord. Okay, so that is something that you want to remember. Okay, so far, let's go now through a recap of the 4 species so that we can also talk about the symbols as well that we're going to have. So basically, what we find is dominant 7 is written with the number 7 only, like C7. That was the very first one that we found, made by root, major third, perfect fifth, minor 7th. Okay, then we had the minor 7, which is made by root, minor third, perfect fifth, and minor 7th. So the symbol for it will be the minus followed by the number 7. Okay, where the minus symbol is referred to the triad within the chord, because the 7th, which is minor as well, doesn't need the symbol minor. You assume that it's minor unless somebody's telling you, like in the major 7th chord, when you say major, you are saying the 7th is major. Then in the minor 7 flat 5, you go root, minor third, diminished fifth, minor 7. The symbol for it is minor 7 with the flat 5, or the circle with the line in between. So what is the symbol then for the major 7? Okay, well, you can write C followed by maj, so M-A-J, 7, okay? Or instead, you can use a delta. A delta, again, is a Greek letter which is made as a triangle, very small triangle that you put on top. If you just put C followed by this little delta, that would be major 7, okay? That's the way you write major 7 in music. Now, just make sure, guys, you don't write 7 plus. It's full of websites, full of tabs on the internet, and you know those websites where you find the lyrics with the chords on top for your favorite songs, which write the major 7 chords as 7 plus, which I guess it means like dominant 7, but raising that 7, which is what it leads you to a major 7th. Guys, just so you know it, the 7 plus chord doesn't exist in music. It's not like it means something else. It just doesn't exist. It's one of the worst mistakes you can make in music when you write a major 7 chord, okay? I made an entire video about that a long time ago here on the channel. So if you're interested, I'll link it here, I'll put a card. Okay, I'll put a card so that you can have fun with the 7 plus, and you'll see why it's not the right way of calling it. But yeah, it does exist another chord which is called plus 7, not 7 plus, plus 7. That does exist. That is another chord, and it works like this. Okay, that's a dominant 7 with a sharp 5, but we're not going to talk about that because that is going to be another topic as well called altered chords, okay, which is something slightly more advanced and more jazzy, and we're not going to talk about it now. So just make sure, guys, that you write the major 7 with maj 7 or the delta, one of these two, and not 7 plus. When you go for maj 7, the MAJ that you're going to use, the part major within the major 7 name, doesn't refer to the major triad. Now, the major 7 chord, the way you should look at it, is basically like a major triad with a major 7th, like everything is major, okay? But when you say major 7, the maj part, the maj word, refers to the 7th. It doesn't refer to the triad, because the triad, we said from the very beginning, when it's major, you're not going to tell me anything. You're just going to say C. That's a C major triad. It's when the C is minor or when the C is diminished, for example, that you have to tell me something. So if you don't put any symbol, I assume that the triad is major. But the 7th instead, which we learned already in the dominant 7, minus 7, and half diminished, if you don't tell me anything about it and you just use the number 7, I'm assuming it's a minus 7th, because it follows a completely different logic from the triad. Now, if instead you want me to think of a major 7th degree, you need to tell me that the 7th is major. And the way you do it is adding MAJ before the number 7. So that MAJ refers to the 7th degree. When you got this chord or this chord, when you tell me major 7, that word maj refers to the 7th and not to the triad, which we already know is going to be major. Okay, I hope this makes sense. It's just to clarify how you notate these chords and what are all of the degrees in all of them. Okay, so once more, dominant 7, root major 3rd perfect 5th minus 7, minus 7, root minor 3rd perfect 5th minus 7, half diminished, root minor 3rd diminished 5th and minus 7th, major 7, root major 3rd perfect 5th major 7th. Okay, these are the things really that you want to memorize about them. We'll see at the end of this video why it is so important that you learn these 4 species very well. Okay, but we'll see that in a minute. Now, before we talk about that, so that we can also introduce what is going to come next in this series, okay, which is going to be probably the most important lesson of this series, I want to talk about the shapes that you must know. Okay, so let's go now over a few shapes that you want to memorize. Okay, we saw already a few of them. Let's just recap them. For the dominant 7 chord, we saw the C shape made by a C major plus the note B flat with your little finger, like this. We also saw an A7 shape, which we said the A7 could be played like this, you know, with the little finger, just with 2 fingers, or with both, okay? And if we use this one with 2 fingers, we can get a C7 like this, just moving an A7 shape into this, okay? There's one thing that you must know. We also saw an E major that becomes an E7 like this, or like this, or like this. And if we use this one with 2 fingers only, we can get a C7 up here, okay, in E shape. So these 3 positions. Then if you want, there is also this D7, okay, where the minus 7th degree is here. If you move this, your root will be on the D string, so you can find your your C note on the D string, and you can get your D7 shape here. Okay, so recapping all of the positions that you should know to survive, I always say. These are survival kits, okay? When you look up online for chords and you want to play your favorite songs and you happen to find some 7th chords, these are your survival kits, okay? So that you can go over those shapes with no fear, okay? Now, one is C7 like this. Another one is C7 like this, A shape. This was C shape, this is A shape, although they are both C7. Then this one, C7 in E shape, then this one, C7 in D shape, okay? These are the bare minimum. They are not the only ones. If you know this one, that would be fantastic. But yeah, these are the bare minimums to know to survive with the dominant 7 chords. Minus 7, we also saw an A minus 7 shape, which can be played like this, or like this, or like this. If you use this with 2 fingers, you go through this C minus 7 position in A shape. Guys, again, if you're not sure, all of these shapes and details, episode 8. Just go back, episode 8. This is the C minor 7 in A minor shape. This is another C minor 7 in E minor shape, because you come from this E minor, which could go E minor 7 like this, or just like this. And if you go for the one with 1 finger only, boom, you get the C minor 7 like this. As simple as 1 bar and 1 note here playing the perfect 5th. Then the other one, which comes from not the caged system, but it comes from the drop system, the drop voicing, which I explained in details at the end of the episode 8. So again, if you're interested in that, episode 8 is this position here, okay, which comes from the arpeggio, but you are going over the one note, the minor third, and another one, the perfect fifth, going one octave higher and generating this beautiful position, super common in R&B, for example. And so on. So yeah, these are the positions for the minor 7. Let's see now 2 positions only that I would like you to know for the minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished. This is a less common chord in pop music, for example, but still you can find it from time to time. If you get in something more soul, jazz, R&B, I would say you find it pretty often. Obviously, if you get into something even more jazz, more bossa nova, for example, you find it kind of like all the time, every song. So if you root again the C on the A string, this is one position that we saw before. It's made by root, then diminished fifth on fret 4 of the D string, minor 7 on fret 3 of the G, and then minor third on fret 4 of the B string. Like this. You mute the low E, mute the bottom high E, and there you go. Okay. The other one is rooting the E on the low E string, like here. What do you do when you do that? Root note here, skip one string. Again, this comes from the drop voicings as we explained last week. I'm not gonna go over the arpeggio, but you know, here is the arpeggio. You could just do the same concept. Root note here, okay, skip one string, minor 7, same fret of the D string, minor third, same fret of the G string, and first finger on the previous fret of the B string playing the minor, the diminished fifth interval, so that you get the minor 7 flat 5 chord like this. So this position and this position are the 2 positions for the minor 7 flat 5 or half diminished chords that I would like you to remember to get started with these chords as well. Now, just to clarify this, although these are not super common chords like maybe the dominant 7 and the major 7th, you will still find them pretty much every time that you have a progression in a minor key as the second degree of a minor key. But more details about that will be in the next episode of this series. So just so you know it, if we are in a minor key, the second degree quite often will be a half diminished chord, a minor 7 flat 5 chord. So if you get them, at least these 2 positions under your fingers, you're going to be okay, because you're going to have one option with the root on the A string, one option with the root on the E string, and you're going to be safe. Then you could learn other positions like the one that I just played, but it's not the most important thing to do at this stage. Also, I want to briefly mention something that we will go over in the future, which is going to be looking at extended chords like the 9th, 11th, and 13th chords. When you look at these extended chords, again, if you've never heard of them, I've got a video about that on the channel as well. If you learn them as 1, 3, 5, 7, for example, okay, like ba, 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 that's a dominant 9 chord that you can play like this or like this. Da, 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 da. This is the 9th. If you look at them and then you remove the root note, the 4 notes that you are left with from the 3rd degree, so basically the 3, 5, 7, 9 of that chord, would be a half diminished chord. So another reason why you sometimes hear this chord, for example, in a more bluesy environment, like what I just played, it's because you don't really want to play a minor 7 flat 5 chord, but you want to play a dominant 9 chord rootless, without the root. And what you get is a minor 7 flat 5 chord. That's why you might have heard of these chords in a more bluesy context without really realizing it, maybe. Okay, just a little, anticipation of something we'll be talking about later. Then the positions for the major 7th chords. Guys, make sure that you learn these, because these are super common, super beautiful. Some of the best chords that you play on guitar are major 7th. So learn these positions with me. Let's start from a major 7 chord in C shape. So we are going over a major chord, okay, like C major. If I look at this shape and I remove my first finger, the note I'm left with is going to be the open B string, okay? Now, the open B string, because the B is the major 7th, as we explained, is going to be my major 7th. So if I look at this shape and I remove my first finger, you have an amazing way of playing a C major 7 chord, just removing one finger from a chord that you already know. Super easy, super nice, okay? Now, when you do that, if you are in the key of C, so if you are playing a C major 7 chord, you can just strum all of the strings, make sure you mute the low E, and this is gonna sound fantastic. If you play finger picking, maybe instead you can stop on the B string to make sure that this becomes your highest note. But the nice thing about this shape, and this is the only reason why I'm really showing you this shape as well, is because this can be moved all through the fretboard in other keys, like all of the other shapes I showed you so far for the 7th chords, without having to learn another shape. So basically you can treat it as if it was a bar chord, but as you can see, there is no bar. So what do we do really? We look at this, 4 notes, root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, major 7th, and we say, if I want to move this from C to D, I can't just, move my 2 fingers. But if I do this, I'm not raising the 2 open strings. They will stay in the key of C. So what do? I need a bar which covers these 2 strings. You could cover 3 strings really, that's up to you. But I find much more comfortable doing this instead, which is muting the 1st string and only get that perfect 5th and the major 7th here. I can even keep my thumb up here. I don't need really a bar anymore. I don't need to be straight anymore. And I do this. C major 7 becomes D major 7 like this, for example. E major 7 like this. F major 7, and so on and so forth. Just doing this 4, 3, 1, 1. And if you want, you skip the 1st string, or if you like it, instead, you play it. It just depends on the voicing, whether you want to stop on the major 7th without repeating any of the notes of the chord. You just want to have 1, 3, 5, 7. Now, I also want to mention that this is one of the few chords that you are going to play in closed position, okay? So you're not going to use any drop voicing, which is the concept behind basically the spread voicing triad extended to the 7th, but you're only going to play this position, the C shape. It doesn't apply to the other shapes I'm about to show you. You're going to play these positions as 1, 3, 5, 7, so in the order you build them up in the theory. Okay, just wanted to make sure you notice that. So this is your C major 7 chord. This, for example, is your D major 7 chord. Okay. Now, what about an A shape? So if I want to root, okay, if this is my A, this is my root note, an A major is like that. If I take this root note and I bring it down to G sharp, this is going to be my major 7. Therefore, this is a way of playing an A major 7. Now I can move this into a bar chord as usual with the A shape, so I can bar the fret 3 where I find the note C and get this beautiful major 7 chord. Again, it's up to you whether you want to mute the 1st string or play it. For the sake of these examples, I will not repeat extra notes of the voicing, so I will just play each note 1, 3, 5, 7 only once. So it's going to be 4 strings. Okay, I don't even need the bar here. Okay. Now, when you do that, this is probably the most common and played positions for any major 7 chord, okay? Tones of songs with this chord. This, for example, is an E flat major 7 that you find at the beginning of Valerie by Amy Winehouse, if you want to have an example of this voicing. So yeah, comes from an A major 7, and it goes like this. Instead, if I want to use the E shape, I can't really. Like, it's going to be very uncomfortable. You could, but it's not going to help us in the playing. It comes up basically like this, a C major 7 in E shape. So I would like to show you with the root on the E string, one position coming from the drop voicings, like the -7 that we learned last week. And it's going to be this. Again, this is one of the most common ways as well to play a major 7 chord. And it goes this way. Root on the E string, for example, C on the fret 8. Skip the A string, you mute it. And then you get 3 and 4 on frets 9 of the D and G string. And fret number 8 of the B string with the 2nd finger, like this. What you get with this, it's going to basically be root, major 7, major 3rd, perfect 5th. So if you look at the voicing, it's going to be 1, 7, 3, 5, 1, 7, 3, 5. So this explains why this comes from the drop voicings. If you look at your page, it's going to be C, E, G, B, root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, major 7th. You take one note, the major 3rd, you bring it 1 octave higher. You take another note, the G, the perfect 5th, you bring it 1 octave higher, and you're left with this. That's your G, C major 7. Okay, guys, learn this chord. If you also follow my series neo soul and R&B acoustic guitar, you will find this pretty much almost every video that I made about that series. Okay, it's a very common chord in music in many styles really. Okay, so that's your C major 7 with the root on the E string. Okay, and then one last position, well, maybe two more positions. One is going to be the D shape. So if I look at my D, that's my D. If I move this root down to C sharp, which is my major 7th, I get this. As simple as that. Open D, and then bar on the 2nd fret of the bottom 3 strings. That's your D major 7. If I now find the C again on fret 10 of the D string, I can play my root here, and my ring finger will play a bar, which shows you the same D shape for the C major 7. Okay, but with the same C, you can get another one, which is going to be this, which I think I briefly mentioned in the episode 8. It's going to be, again, another closed position. So one of the few that we'll be seeing with 1, 3, 5, 7 in the voicing without mixing them up. And it's going to be root on fret 10, then fret 9 of the following string is going to be the major 3rd, fret 8 of the following string, perfect 5th, and fret 7 of the following string, it's going to be the major 7. Root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, major 7. Beautiful chord. You know, for example, you find this at the end of the riff of Can't Stop by Red Hot Chili Peppers. It's that chord. Yeah, these are the things that really you need to know about the major 7 position. So recapping all of the major 7s, they're going to be C shape, which is this, which you can move anywhere you like. It's going to be the A shape, which is this, so you can get a C major 7 here, D major 7, E major 7, and so on and so forth. This position, C major 7, coming from the drop of the arpeggio, drop 3. Okay. So if you need an A major 7, you move this to A and you get A major 7. Then the D shape, that's a D major 7, which in C comes like here. You can move it anywhere you like it. That's a G major 7. And then this closed position, okay, very beautiful, okay, which again, you find very often. Another song that starts like this is Love is a Losing Game by Amy Winehouse. You know, that's the chord, the C major 7, the first chord. So yeah, these are all of the positions you need to know, guys, to survive. I say to my students, these are my survival kits for my students, so that when you look at songs that include any type of 7 chords of these 4 species of chords, you're going to be covered with different positions with the root on different strings. Okay, hope it makes sense. Let me know, guys, in the comments if you have any questions about that. And now I'd like to go into... I moved the camera, sorry about that. I'd like to go into our very last topic for tonight, which is going to be the introduction to the concept of harmonized scale, and in general, how do we find the key that we are playing in? You know, when you play a song, how can you define what's the key? When you play a chord progression, what is the key of that chord progression? Or simply, if you want to come up with your own chord progression in a given key, how do you do that? Well, you have to go through something which is called harmonized scale. For example, for the major keys, it's going to be the harmonized major scale. And for the minor keys, it's going to be the harmonized natural minor scale. Now, this will be, just as an anticipation, guys, this will be the main topic of the episode 10. So the next episode of this series. So if you are interested in finding out in which key you are playing, watch out for the episode 10 of this series, because it's going to be the really important one to define all this. Now, in general, just to give you an anticipation, because this is one of the questions that I get more often, okay? How do I know in which key I'm playing? How do I know what's the key of this chord progression? And if you are maybe interested in lead guitar and improvise and solos and all that kind of stuff, you might come up with, how do you know that you need to play that scale along to that song, along to those chords in order to improvise your solo? Well, you know it because you know the rules of the harmonized scales. Now, the concept of harmonized scales is basically going from single notes, for example, the 7 single notes of a C major scale. Okay, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, ba, boo, 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 and get a chord out of all of these notes. So out of the C, you get a chord. Out of the D, you get a chord. An E, you get a chord. The process to do that, which is called harmonization, is basically overlapping by thirds notes of the chords, notes of the scales, starting from each degree of the scale. So from the C, I will overlap E and G. From the D, I will overlap F and the A. From E, I will overlap G and B, and so on. We'll see that in detail next time. Okay. This will give you chords. If you just stop at the fifth, you will find 1, 3, 5, which is going to be your major or minor or diminished chords, basically your triads. If instead you continue this to 4 notes, you'll get your 7th chords, 1, 3, 5, 7, which is the reason why you need to know these 4 chords. Without them, without the dominant 7, minor 7, half diminished, and major 7th, you can't follow that lesson, because in that lesson, these are the 4 species that you will find. As you can see, we are not continuing with the other species of 7th chords yet. We will see them later. What we needed were these 4 chords so that you can follow the concept of harmonized major scale and figuring out every time what's the name of the key that you're playing in. Okay, that's the big thing. But yeah, if you didn't have the information and the knowledge that we went through in this course so far, you wouldn't be able to follow fully what we're going to talk about next week. So again, because this is going to be probably the most important lesson here, I perfectly remember when I learned those things, where I was, in which room, with which teacher, when I really realized, oh, I can now figure out any key I'm playing. I can figure out by myself what scales to use to create melodies. I can come up with my own chord progressions in a given key. So it's something really huge that will change the way you look at music and the way you look at the guitar if you already don't know these topics yet. And you will also be able to follow much better, way more advanced lessons and concepts, okay? So again, the concept of harmonized scales is basically going from one scale, which is made by 7 notes, to 7 chords. And those 7 chords will repeat in every key so that you will always be able to figure out in which key you are, okay? So that's what we are going to do in order to figure out the keys, which is one of the most requested topics when you talk about music theory. Okay. My advice, take as many notes as you can out of these lessons. If you have questions, ask any questions, possibly before the episode 10. And if you haven't watched all of the previous episodes, guys, this is a good, time to maybe go back and watch the episodes that you missed. Take some notes about that so that then you can fully follow the episode 10, which is going to be the one about the keys. Okay. Now, we've covered the 4 species of 7th chords that you need for that. So we are ready to go into that direction. That is going to be one of the big topics that we'll be talking about. The way you want to reach that topic is going through examples first. So make sure that you spend some time going over all of these chords and asking yourselves, okay, if I've got, for example, you just take a pen and a piece of paper and you say, if I've got, for example, a G major 7 chord, just get a random one, what notes do I have into it? You start from G, you add G, B, D, F sharp, and on top of it you write root, major 3rd, perfect 5th, major 7th. That is what you want to know. You want to know every time what intervals, what degrees, and what single notes you have in any chord. If you also know how to find those notes on the fretboard, that would be fantastic. It means that we also have a good knowledge of the fretboard. And if you learn some of the shapes that I showed you, that will help you to play even slightly more difficult songs that you might already like and you might already want to learn, but you don't know how to play or how to understand these chords, okay, that we go through. So that's all I want to say for now. But again, I want to invite you all to the episode 10, which is going to be probably the milestone, of this first part of the Music Theory for Guitarists course. After that, we'll be going over more examples, more scales, more concepts. We will also introduce the modal scales, the difference between tonality and modality, all this kind of stuff. And I will also go back to the fretboard to make sure that we all get, how to find as quick as possible the names of the notes on the fretboard, which will help us into anything we play, from scales to arpeggios and chords, into understanding the keys and all that. Okay. All right. So again, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Hope you enjoyed tonight's class, and I hope to see you soon for the next episode, which is going to be the episode 10. Okay, my latest video was out on Tuesday, and it was about shuffle feel and swing feel when you play guitar. So if you're interested in also finding some fundamentals of theory for the rhythm, make sure you don't miss the latest video on that topic as well. And yeah, that's all for tonight. That's all for tonight. If you did enjoy this video, make sure that you like this video and share it with your family and friends that might be interested. And if you haven't done it yet, make sure to subscribe to this channel, ring the bell, and you'll get a notification when I'm about to go live. All right? Enjoy the rest of your evening or morning or day or whatever you are, and have a nice weekend, and I'll catch you soon for the next episode. Take care, guys. See you soon.